What's poppin'? What's poppin'? How's everybody doing? Welcome back to another episode of Life According to Rick. How's everybody doing? It has been a pretty eventful week, I must say. It is finally Friday, March 20th, officially the first day of spring. Now, when it comes to that, I have to say it does not feel spring-like. It is still in the 30s, and Monday, we're expecting at least 2 inches of snow, which is mind blowing. Like you would have thought that we was already done with, wintry mixes and snow. It's already pretty much all melted. And for the most part, I feel like even though it won't be a lot of snow, but the fact that we're getting snow, it just like blows my mind. So I'm like, I'm over it. I just want some decent weather, you know what I'm saying? So you could crack the windows open, open the doors, you know what I'm saying? Enjoy that nice, cool, you know what I'm saying? Like, I know you know what I'm talking about. So I want to tell y'all about last Friday, my birthday, right? So I pretty much had to work last Friday, regular shift or whatever, and I was scheduled to work till 7 o'clock. So I'm working, I'm chilling, and my wife was, prepping dinner because we were gonna have dinner at the house. The kids were gonna come over. So, mind you, it was like 5:30-ish. My wife started to preheat the oven, you know what I'm saying, to put the lasagna in. So that way, by the time I clocked out of work, you know what I'm saying, the food will be done. The kids would have already have been here and we would have had dinner. But there was like other plans in the universe. So my wife is like, yo, because I'm upstairs in my office working and she's downstairs and she's like, yo, you smell gas? I was like, what? So when she said that, like, then it hit me. I'm like, I started like sniffing, like smelling, and I'm like, yo, it really does smell like gas. So I had to call like the maintenance people. And so right away off rip, they called the fire department. Fire department came. They were like, as soon as they walked into the door, they're like, oh, yeah, yeah, it smells like gas. So they had to call the gas company. Gas company had to come through and they shut the stove off and like it was crazy. So I'm like, wow. So basically, I was like, yo, like my birthday dinner got ruined. But we packed everything up. We went to my mother-in-law's house and you know what I'm saying, we put the lasagna in her stove over there. You know what I'm saying? The kids still came over. We were chilling. We sang happy birthday, cut the cake. So overall it was a good turn of event, but scary at the same time. So that was pretty wild, to experience that. You know what I'm saying? The gas leak and you know what I'm saying? That's like a scary situation. It was nice having the kids, being there, having that family time. Harlem was excited. He don't really see his siblings like that, so whenever they do come through, he's just all smiles and he was just all on top of his brother, you know what I'm saying? Like he just would not leave his brother's side. So, it was a good event. It was low key, very intimate, just us. But it definitely put things into perspective. Like family is everything. I love when my kids, come over and we're all together. Just shooting the shit. Talking and we're having a good time. It's always a good vibe when they come over and stuff like that. But today is the big day. I'm super excited. My wife and I are heading off to Vegas for the weekend. And I gotta say, I'm very much anticipating this trip. You know, it's long overdue. My wife and I taking like a vacation. You know what I'm saying? Like we really don't get that, right? Um, I went to Miami a few weeks ago and I went by myself, but it was just like a quick trip, birthday thing, to go and spend time with my family and go to the baseball classic and stuff like that. But we're gonna take advantage, and go on this trip and not worry about toddler chaos and schedules. We're gonna be out there, just us, not having to worry about anything. Although I will say, because mothers have that mom guilt. She's worried about Harlem and staying with his grandmother, and hoping that he doesn't give them a hard time, him and his grandparents, right? But I tell her like, yo, like we're good. He's gonna be good, and once he's there, like, he's always has fun with his grandparents, and I'm thankful for them, for being around and being very much involved with Harlem, and so it's gonna be a great trip. But I promise you, I swear, this little boy, he must have like a sixth sense or something, because it's like every time there's a trip coming up, like especially me, a couple times that I've gone away, what I'm saying, for like a weekend or whatever, like he knows, and he be in his feelings, what I'm saying? Like he gets FOMO. And when I'm home, he's just like the ill sour patch with me. Like, one minute he's good, like I love you, daddy, and he's giving me hugs, and then the next minute he be tweaking out, and he be telling me, "Bye, daddy, I want mommy," and he's like a gremlin. He's like a ill gremlin. But I let him be. I'm like, you know what? That's fine. You can go with your mama. I'm good. So this week is just like, my wife gave him like this talk, and I told her, I was like, yo, don't give him the talk, because now you're planting that seed in his brain. So he's gonna know that we're not gonna be here. So she literally was like, Harlem, we gotta talk to you or whatever. And she's like, mommy and daddy gotta like go away or whatever. And off rip, he's like, I don't want to. I don't want you to go. And so I'm like, damn, like you really had to do this now. But I guess it worked out, because now you know, he's fine and he's anticipating going with his grandparents. So, we had to pack his little bag, put all his stuff, his clothes for the weekend. We get back late Monday night, so he has to go to school Monday. So we had to make sure that we had everything in order, to make everything easier for his grandparents. But it's funny how kids, they be like knowing. But I'm hoping that, maybe this summer we can do like a family trip or something like that, so he can get away and, you know, change of scenery for him. Like, 'cause like I said, like the half of the year we're like cooped up indoors because the weather just be nasty. It doesn't allow us to be outside. We're like, I'm convinced we're not meant to be living up north anymore. Who knows? Maybe that's a foreshadow, but that's like a story for another day. So traveling with my wife is I want to say is like a project. And I say it's a project because she's very much, she likes to be prepared. She doesn't like to miss anything as far as like stuff that we need to take with us on the trip. So it was earlier in the week, she's like, we need to pack and yada yada yada. And I'm like, girl, like is we're going for the weekend. It's not like we have to pack a whole bag, you know what I'm saying? Like we're gonna be fine. So Wednesday night, like I had got off work and I was just like, yeah, let me just pack my bag. I already kind of had an idea of what I wanted to take with me, so it was real simple. I grabbed everything, I put it together, you know what I'm saying, and I put it in the bag. And, I got my toiletries and, I made sure that I had everything that I needed. And I was like, yo, I'm done packing. She was like, what? And, but with her, she it was funny because she had gathered all her things and then she was like put in like a little pill box. And I'm like, yo, what are you doing? Like, what are you taking? I promise you, it was like a traveling over the counter pharmacy. Like she had like Aleve, Excedrin, Imodium AD, uh, like stuff just in case, and I'm laughing about it, right? But like it's smart because you never know. Like you might get a headache and or you may eat something that doesn't sit right in your stomach. So she comes prepared. So I don't knock her for it. It's smart thinking. We're all packed up. Harlem's in school. Grandma will pick him up later on this afternoon. We're gonna head off to the airport, and by the time we get to Vegas, it's gonna be, I want to say like 11 o'clock when we land. Um, which will be, I want to say early because Sin City they 24 hours, right? And we'll check in and we'll probably see what's going on with the city for a little bit before calling it a night, get some rest. And then tomorrow my brother is coming through from Miami with his fiance and my cousin, so it's gonna be like Miami round two, but just in a different city. So I'm excited for that because, we're gonna link up and, family time again. So it's gonna be good vibes. And, we don't really have an itinerary, but we gonna see what the city has to offer. You know what I mean? And we're gonna just kind of like be spontaneous. We may agree to, go certain places, and see what's going on in Vegas. But it's gonna be a great time, and I can't wait to talk about it next week. And you know, I'm pretty sure that it'll be very very fun times when we get together. We be wild boys, but we're gonna be well behaved. Um, my wife and I have reservations to go to Benihana's on Sunday, which is the day before we head back home. But for the most part, we'll be chilling with the family and stuff like that. So, it's gonna be a good vibe, man. I'm really looking forward to hopping on the plane and heading on to Vegas. It's crazy because I'm sitting here and I'm thinking like it's March 20th and it is my mother's birthday today. God bless her soul. She would have been 60. She would have been 63. 63 years old. Wow. So when I think about that, as I mentioned before, my mother and I had an estranged relationship, right? And I remember one of the last times that I was in Miami, not this trip that I just went, but the one prior to was like 5 years ago, and this was the year that she had passed away, right? I remember she had sent me a text message and she had like sent me like a picture, like an old picture, of like me and her. It was like one of my birthdays, and because her and I weren't speaking at the time, we weren't really on speaking terms. I kind of kept it short with her. And, I was just like, thank you. And I left it like that. I didn't really engage too much with her. Not realizing that that was the last conversation that I was gonna have with my mother, which is like super nuts when I think about it. So, granted, despite, all the turmoil and chaos that her and I were going through, always, check with your loved ones, you know what I mean? Especially your parents, you know what I mean? Because you never know. But if I'm being real with y'all, Miami really changed my perspective a little bit. It really taught me to, slow down and be present, you know, being out there, watching the sunrise on South Beach, being on a boat and going to the World Baseball Classic surrounded by all my Dominican peoples. It was just like an amazing feeling. Like it wasn't just about what I was doing, but about how I was feeling in those moments, right? And even with the World Baseball Classic, yeah, DR lost. It was a sad moment. I was really rooting for them, hoping that they would have pulled through, but I won't even get into that. But it was the pride, the energy, the culture. Like that's something you carry with you, right? It's bigger than the game, and standing there, I realized that, you know, my roots are my roots and my story is my story. And I'm always going to carry that pride with me, you feel me? But that's what we bringing into Vegas. So now Vegas, the lights, the energy, the chaos, the vibe, but this time it's going to be different. Not just to turn up, but to really experience it. Being present, enjoying those moments with my wife, and then with my family once they pull up. It's like we're gonna press play on the next chapter. And I already know it's gonna be a movie. At the end of the day, this trip, it's about life. It's about appreciating the people you got, honoring the ones you lost, and being present for the moments in front of you. So we're gonna wrap things up because we're gonna be heading out in a few and kind of wanna get everything situated, make sure that we don't forget anything else before we head out. So I really appreciate every single one of y'all for rocking with your boy. This is now episode 17. And I can't wait till next episode, talk about this trip. And trust me, it's going to be a vibe. So until then, slow down, be present, and enjoy your people. I love y'all. Still your boy.